All right. Let me check.
Hello, happy Sunday morning. Happy Recovery Day.
Happy Recovery Day. Happy Recovery Day. Happy Recovery Day. Doodle-doo. You guys are going to be in for a treat.
Recovery is important. Oh, I'm just following this guy singing. You guys don't really want to hear me sing. It's not too cute. Okay, so I will start. Recovery, super important. Probably, hopefully, a lot of you guys have some tightnesses, sorenesses, like I mentioned in the beginning of the week, I think so we started last Saturday. So, I felt it on Sunday, but on Monday and Tuesday, day 2 and 3, my lats, my back was lit up. Like I couldn't believe how much more sore I was shadowboxing in the air versus using a partner. It's crazy. I make myself do recovery every day. When I'm training with clients, I have them do some to warm up and do some to cool down, as well as recommending they do some at home. So hopefully you guys do too, because it's super important. So one of the first things when we're doing a lot of punching, fighting, boxing, and also weightlifting, gripping, our hands are in this clenched position a lot. So one of the first things is let's undo that by taking 2 fingers at a time and just gently stretching them backwards. A physical therapist actually first showed me this, and it actually does feel quite good. So I take 2 fingers at a time, starting with the thumb and the index finger, just gently pull them back. Move on to the next 2 fingers. I may not always spend as much time on everything. I actually have a lot of stuff that I want to get through with you guys. So I might go through things a little bit faster. And one thing to know is that it's not always possible to stretch and do everything as much as you want every day. Try to pay attention to your body and see what feels the tightest, and focus on that. In the mornings, sometimes I'll do different things than the evenings. So it all just kind of depends. Just try to listen to your body, see what's going in. Failed to connect to server. Let me see. The other one is having a little bit of issues. Keep stretching these fingers back. Hi, T. Boz, it says failed to connect to server on the computer.
Yeah, I got you on OfficialBasRutten here.
Oh, you do? Okay. Keep stretching these fingers back.
See?
Oh, okay. That red.
Yeah, so we should be live.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now take your forearms, sort of just like how when Boz is doing the hamstring stretch at the same time. Oh, okay. Take your fingers and just bend those guys back to get a nice forearm stretch. And think about throwing stretching in wherever you can. I know these days we're not doing as much of things such as waiting in line, but I use that as an example a lot to my clients. Take something and stretch it. Like there's a lot to do. You can do this little finger stretches, little forearm stretches, you can do neck stretches. Try to just move something and stretch it out when you're just waiting. Fill in the time. Loosen up your body. It's great. It also will definitely help with injury prevention. Stretching and recovery is huge for injury prevention. So that is one main reason, because we all want to keep doing the things that we're doing, right? So not getting injured is huge. All right, another good way to get to those forearms, I'll have weeks where my forearms are just so tight, and who knows why, but again, the clenching, when you're gripping, doing weightlifting, another really good way to get into these forearms that another one of my trainer friends here showed me a long time ago is to use your knee to get into this forearm. So if you have the flexibility for this, or hopefully you will eventually, have your forearm down on the ground and then using your knee, just drive in to loosen up those muscles. What we're really going after with stretching and recovery is releasing the fascia. You've probably heard a lot about fascia is a very big kind of hip cool thing in the fitness industry right now, but there actually is purpose to it. So what the fascia is if you think about an orange, so just drive that knee into that forearm. So when you take out, an orange slice, when you peel an orange, when you take out each of the little slices, think of the white covering on one of the little pieces. That is similar to the fascia around our muscles. And fascia actually has way more nerve endings than the actual muscle fibers. And if something gets tight, and I'm not saying everything is 100%, but if something gets tight, so think about if this is the fascia around my muscle, if something gets tight or I get a knot, now that fascia is bunched up. And the muscle, therefore, if the fascia, if the covering is bunched up around it, the muscle cannot be at a length and work properly. So what we're trying to do with any of these techniques is to work out the knot in that fascia. We're trying to release that and get it back to where it's nice and smooth, and now that muscle can be at its proper length, and we'll get better function from it, obviously, better gains if you're after gaining muscle, which is one of the things I'm eternally chasing. So if that fascia is wrinkled up, the muscle can't grow, it can't grow properly, and it can't function properly. So self-myofascial release is the fancy term for things like foam rolling, using balls, using lots of different things. Door frame openers is another common one that I have people do when people are also sitting at desks every day. Think about most of our life is in this forward position. Fighting is in this forward position. I'm going to use this because I don't have a door frame right here, but if you're standing against a door frame, so this is my mock door frame. Your forearm can be on the door frame, and again, this can be anything. And you're feeling this pec stretch in your chest. So you can change the height where your arm is at. You can vary it up. Your hand can even be down here. And basically, you're getting a nice stretch on these pecs. I tend to stagger my legs with one in front of the other. How you do it, which one in front, I get asked that a lot by clients. Doesn't really matter. Just feel the stretch in your pecs here while you're holding that door frame. I can also maybe use my foam roller as a mock door frame when you get a little bit on the other side. So just use something, obviously there's no weight into this, but use something to really stretch and feel the stretch in those pecs. I have a whole physical therapy journey where because of my poor posture and gaining muscle and muscle tightness, I had developed numbness in my fingertips. So if you do this and you feel like your hands are kind of, or your fingertips are kind of tingling and going a little numb, that's okay. Nothing bad is happening. It just means that your pecs are probably really tight. And fighting contributes, unfortunately, to those tight pecs, but so does everyday life because so many things are happening in front of us. So you want to undo that, and releasing those pecs is part of that. It also puts your back in nice, proper orientation. Another way to release pecs, if you guys have any sort of ball, tennis ball, lacrosse ball, that's a great tool. You can do so much stuff with that. These are my yoga tune-up balls that I love. And a good way to get into these pecs more, you can use a wall to drive into these pecs to help release them. You can also use a very inexpensive foam block to do the same thing. Put it on your pecs, press the foam block. You can also use the foam block against the wall and press into it just so you're not right up on the wall like, hey, wall, how are you? So you can creative with the ways to basically get in there and release these pecs. So get those suckers released. Just try to feel where they feel the most tight. Press in there. So if you have a ball, grab it because there will be lots more areas where we can use this. Whew, this side's a little tighter. And you may feel differences too, where one side feels tighter than the other. Totally normal. Almost none of us are symmetrical. Yours truly including, as much as I try to get, usually it's lefty to catch up to righty. Things are not going to be symmetrical all the time. So that same thing with tightness or soreness. My right side of my pecs feel tighter than my left. So just notice that. Neck. Let's get some neck releases in here. And lots of these things you can do sitting as well. Let's do this one sitting. Sit with your nice tall posture. Let's put one arm behind our back. Reach over gently. We never want to do things. We never want to force the neck. Don't ever tug and pull on that neck. Let's be nice to our neck. I'm always super tight here. As much as I try to do, some areas just don't like to release as much as others, unfortunately. You can change the angle. So try to stay long in your neck. I know that sounds kind of weird, but instead of just crunching over and crunching down, try to first elongate from the top of your head and then come over to the side. And I will also switch my gaze down at an angle, at a diagonal, and just feel it a little differently. We're getting lots of different muscles in the neck here. Hold that. Usually I like to hold stretches for minimum 30 seconds. If you can do even 60 to 90, even better. But obviously that time adds up. So just feel, let's switch sides. Just feel in your body. Try to feel what either feels the best when you're done and then be like, okay, I'm going to do that one every day. Or you wake up in the morning. I love to do a little bit of stretching in the morning. I specifically did not do any before this, so you guys could see when we get to the hip stuff how tight I start out as well. But one person asked in the Q&A yesterday about Boz's morning routine, and he does a lot of stretching at home as well. I do as well. I listen, switch your gaze. I listen to a lot of people that are either life coaches or influencers that I believe in on Instagram and Facebook, and a lot of them do morning stretches, do morning gratitudes, things like that. I like to put gratitudes and stretching at home together so you can think your gratitude thoughts while you're doing stretching. Okay, so there's a little bit on the neck. Let's go to, if you guys have a foam roller. A foam roller is a fantastic tool. If you don't, it's okay. I just want to go over a couple things. 2 different types of foam rollers that we have at the gym and that I also have at home. Basically a regular one. They do come in different densities where some are harder and some are softer. I don't like the super soft ones because I've had one that, it ends up like oval and it's not round anymore. So that's kind of annoying. This one is an IntelliRoll, and I think this is super cool. A friend of Boz's makes these where it's kind of raised in the middle, and this is great to go around your spine. So I'm going to start out with this one. Again, if you don't have a foam roller, just come and lay down on the ground. I'm going to put this around my spine. I like to have the head and neck supported while I'm going from the middle of my back to the top of my back, and you'll hear the lovely sound. I get lots of comments on the sound of this one, as you can imagine, because, we all never really grow up, right? I will sometimes add some lateral movement in here, just to show you a difference. So that's that one. This one is just a little, it doesn't have the ridge in the middle, but same thing. You can come up and down here. Ooh, you know what I forgot to bring? Going back to the balls, if you have any sort of balls at home. One of my first made tools that I made from, again, the recommendation of a physical therapist is I took 2 tennis balls, and I still have them, but I forgot to pull them out of the cupboard at home. 2 tennis balls duct taped together. So these yoga tune-up balls, they come in a little ball sack. Yeah, ball sack. That one never gets old. Boz and I were talking about that before we started. Like I work with way too many guys at the gym, so we're always talking about, sorry. Hopefully no one's offended, but we're always talking about balls in the ball sack. So it's fun, you know, it breaks up the monotony. Not that we're very monotonous here, because we have fun all day long. But, so your 2 tennis balls that are duct taped together, this also feels really good going along the back and the spine here. So you can do the same thing here with 2 balls duct taped together or in their little sack. And again, I like to add some side-to-side or lateral movement here. If you find a spot with either of your modalities that is really painful, that you're like, oh man, this hurts so bad, I don't want to keep doing it in this spot, do it. That means your body needs it. If something hurts a lot, that means your fascia is super tight and you need the release even more in that spot. So deep breathe on that spot, hold it for longer, and I promise it gets better over time, and then your body legit starts craving it because you're like, oh, like I feel so much better, I move so much better, and you're going to be so much less prone to injury. You can also take your newly made tennis ball duct tape thing, back up, and you can get into your lats a little bit more. So the lats are what you might feel sore from so much punching. The lats help to produce that punching power. So if you're using your balls a little bit more on the side, getting on those lats, that really can be even a little bit deeper than the foam roller. I use the foam roller on the lats as well. This is a common one as well. But, ooh, that spot. Remember I was telling you guys the right pecs were super tight? Well, my right lats were super sore. Interesting, though, earlier in the week, left side was more sore than the right. Let's test that out. Just come to the left side. If you guys don't have any balls handy, just try to come down, come down to the ground and just do some movements with that arm. If you have anything you can possibly use, trying to think of other examples. So anything at home that maybe is, you know, a similar consistency to like a firm or semi-firm rubber ball, try using that. But really easy, even in these quarantine type times, to find a tennis ball. A lacrosse ball is great too. I love the consistency of these yoga tune-up balls. You can easily order those too. They're not too expensive, but get in there. And yeah, my right side is still more sore than my left, but earlier in the week, lefty was worse. So interesting how it changes. Okay, so those are our lats, and we went down our back with either foam roller or your homemade balls. Child pose. Let's go over child pose. That's a good one too. This will start now opening up our back and our lats and our shoulders. So with child's pose, kind of the traditional child's pose is to come down, try to get your butt on your heels. If you can't, that's fine. Or if your knees are a little sore, then just don't come as far and kind of stay here. Reach out in front of you. As you're reaching out and you're pulling, you're thinking about pulling the ground towards you. So try to imagine if you had a really heavy, carpet or something, and you're pulling that towards you. Feel how that actually activates and makes your lats work. With a lot of time with stretching and recovery, it's a combination of either static stretching, dynamic stretching, and then activation, where we're making the muscle work. So in your child's pose, pull the ground, that feeling of pulling the ground towards you. Another variation of child's pose is to turn your hands where they're facing upwards, and you'll feel how that external rotation of the shoulders, you get a little more shoulder opening. So let's do that variation too. Come down here, but now turn your hands, palms up, and of course we're not really going to be pulling the ground towards us in this one, but just let those shoulders stretch out in addition to your whole back. Take some deep breaths here. Deep breathing really helps deepen the stretch, helps release, open up the lungs. Do a big inhale. I like to do about 5 rounds of deep breathing, so do 3 more deep breaths for me. And feel how as you sit there for a little bit longer, you're kind of opening up even more. And that generally is the deal with stretching. Most of us, I don't. Maybe some people do wake up and they're just like totally limber. That's not me. I have to work for it. I have to foam roll, use my balls, add in some breathing. When I add in the breathing, I really feel that things open up and release more. We want to give our body oxygen. We want to get things to open up more with that breathing. All right, let's move on. I have my little cheat sheet over here, by the way, if you guys are wondering why I keep looking over here. I had to go on the back. At first I was all like, oh, maybe this will only be like a half an hour. Then I'm like, oh, maybe 45 minutes. And then I'm like, oh, I'll be lucky to finish in an hour. Like, I have so much stuff I want to tell you guys. Okay, another one of my favorites, I might say that like who knows how many times, is, put these guys out of the way, is a seated, we can do this seated as well, or lying on the ground spinal stretch. I'm going to show you one side lying on the ground, and then I'll show you a seated variation. So one leg is going to be straight, one leg is going to be bent at about a 90 degree, and I just kind of keep my arms with my triceps on the ground. Your hands could be flat on the ground too, whatever feels best to you. Gently drive this knee across your body. I like to start moving and then go into a static hold, but feel this low back. Oh man, I love this. Don't force it either. If your, actually let me face this way. If your range of motion is just such though that you can only get here, that's totally fine. As long as you feel the back stretching, just please don't force anything on your back and neck. I mean, anything in any spot, really. It's not worth forcing it. Over time, your flexibility will increase, and you'll get into a routine where you find the things that most resonate with you and that you like the best. Now, hold it over. If you're a little bit looser and you're on the ground, cool. If you're not, cool. And I like to add just putting my hand on my knee. And then the other thing I add is looking the opposite direction and extending that arm. So yeah, that just deepens, but gently deepens the stretch on the back. We want the body to be able to move in all planes of motion. I'm looking at you guys, but normally I would be facing the opposite way to where my knee is. So we want the body to be able to rotate. Most of life happens in front of us and going straight forward. That's called the sagittal plane. But we want our body to be able to rotate, and because what do we do? What do we do in martial arts a lot? Rotation. So we do a lot of rotation. We want our body to feel good there. Go to the other side for me. I'm going to show you a seated variation on this. So if you're fortunate enough to still be working, or when you go back to work, I would love if you keep doing this as well. You can cross It's not quite as, this is actually a little bit more of a seated figure 4, but little similar. Press here, and then from here, you can add that rotation. So similar, not totally the same thing. Figure 4, we can do this on the ground too, but you can still feel that spinal stretch. You can also just stay sitting tall and just do the spinal stretch part of it without any leg involvement. And I just gently kind of put one hand on the back, on the outside of my knee, look and turn. If I have anything to grab onto behind me, then that can help deepen it a little bit, but take your head with you. Look and turn, and just feel, that should feel good on your back to get that nice, full, easy rotation, so that then, when we're doing martial arts and we're doing those explosive rotations, hopefully we will stay safe and we won't injure ourselves. All right, let's talk about the glutes. Glutes are huge, and this is gonna lead us into a lot of what we can do for tight hips. I have super tight hips as well, normally. Especially if I don't do my stretching, my recovery, they'll get really tight. And I can totally see it in my kicks, because what'll happen is, instead of my hips opening up to give me that kick, the knee will kind of cave in and my kick will turn over immediately. It's really weird, but I've talked to another one of our trainers here, JJ. We've talked about it, how sometimes, and it's worse, it tends to be worse with my right hip, maybe because, you know, doing more right kicks in general, but instead of this hip opening up and delivering the kick, my knee will immediately cave in and I'm kicking, you know, at this weird angle instead of on the front of my shin. So staying religious with my glute releases has helped that. And then that being said, still some days it will be worse than others, and you know, and it just is what it is. If you have a foam roller, I'll show you a method with the foam roller. You can sit on your foam roller, one foot in front, cross one ankle over one knee, grab that ankle, the other hand is on the ground behind you. So I have left ankle crossed over my right knee, and so my left hand is on the ground and my right hand is on the ankle. You'll kind of feel it because it can be confusing in the beginning. If you're the other way, you won't feel like, you'll feel like you're gonna fall off of the foam roller. So you'll feel that it feels way more balanced if the same side, the leg that is crossed, that same side hand is on the ground. And now what you're doing is you're rotating towards that side, our butt cheek. But what we're really getting into is a muscle that's deep to the glutes called the piriformis. So just kind of rotate into that, move around. If we don't have a foam roller at home, you can take your handy dandy tennis ball and you can use that. A little bit easier actually, but stick that underneath, just kind of the main part of your butt, and move all around in there. Tennis ball won't be as firm, obviously, as a foam roller, but it still works. It's still valid. So I like to give a little bit of a release in here first, and just get all around there. Also, try to keep your shoulder back while you're doing this so your chest is open, so you're still working on your good posture. So I'm not caving in here doing this and driving in this poor posture. I'm here. I'm opening up my shoulder and making sure that that still kind of gets a stretch at the same time too. So get in there with that ball or that foam roller. Next thing is that figure 4 that I was doing here seated. We can do that lying down too. A way that a friend of mine who's physical therapist and he does pain management, really, really good guy, Vinny. So a lot of us have done this and we see people grab here. That's totally fine. But what he taught me is to use the leg to to basically drive the stretch. So instead of grabbing, I'm leaving my shoulders open and I'm using that leg to push back against the other ankle. You should feel a big stretch in the similar area that we just rolled, that glute, but really it's the piriformis too, that deep muscle. And that muscle gets super tight when people are sitting a lot, which a lot of us might be doing, Netflixing. So we feel a lot of tightness there. I also feel a lot of tightness there, even though I personally don't sit a lot. So I think it's just a combination of other things that I do and exercising, etc. You can also add in some ankle circles. We will get to ankles at the end. Let's switch sides. So just consider that variation where, again, it's not wrong to reach through and grab either back of the thighs or on the shin, but I like the method that was taught to me where you're using your leg to deepen the stretch. So you should feel a big stretch here. I also feel some all the way over here. Just wherever you feel it, just feel it and notice it. And if you want to add in any sort of ankle circle while you're here holding it, that's totally good too. We want those ankles always to stay mobile as well. Obviously we want everything mobile. The body is all connected. If one thing is tight, it can lead to so many other things. You can have foot pain from the opposite shoulder that's tight. Like it's crazy how lots of times the source of the pain isn't actually the primary problem. So that's a figure 4. We did those sitting as well. Feel that stretch on the back of your butt. Another area of the glutes, the glute medius, is more this muscle on the side. There's an amazing ball for this that is larger. So if this is kind of our tennis ball size, this one is called an alpha ball, also from Tune Up Fitness. I got introduced to this one from another trainer that we work with here, Cameron, and the size difference is pretty significant. That's what she said. So, just kidding. I'm not even kidding you. I work with way too many guys at this gym. So this size is really good to get into the glute medius. I'm going to show you a whole series here. But also your 2 homemade, I'm still laughing at myself. I'm such a nerd. Your 2 homemade tennis balls in the duct tape could work for this as well. So let's use this because I don't expect that most people have this at home. Let's use your 2 homemade tennis balls. If you don't have anything like this, see if you can improvise and maybe just find something for now. But I would recommend coming back to this one and trying this one. So I'm going to show you where we want it. We're going to be on our side, but where we want these on our body is sort of right on the side of, so not the major part of our glutes where we were in the beginning. We want it sort of right on the side, and it's going to be below. You'll feel a bone right here, so we want it below that bone in the soft tissue here. This one, oh man, when Karen first showed me this one, I could not do it. I could not at all. And I have a lot of my clients do it because a lot of us have really tight hips. They're like, and when I pull out the alpha ball, they're like, no, it's really funny. And I'm like, dude, I get it. I'm like, I was there too, but I promise it gets better. Like if you keep doing it. And several of my clients have purchased that ball. I don't sell it. It's not my product, but it's a great product and it's a great thing. So get your balls on the side there. Such a child. And if you can, lay all the way down. If you cannot, if it's too much, if it's too tight, come here. Keeping your good posture, but be here if it's too much to be all the way down on the ground. And so you're finding a spot where it should be tender. There's a lot of controversy about the word pain, right? But I'm going to say it was sheer pain the first, 3, 4, 5 times I did it, so much pain. Like I was like, what kind of person would make up something like this? Well, it's because a lot of us are tight there. So the first thing that we're doing is pushing our hips forward and back. Push your hips forward and back about 10 times when you're on that painful / tender spot. The next thing that we're doing is a pelvic tilt, and I'm going to come up. Keep pushing your pelvis forward and back. I'm going to come up and show you what a pelvic tilt is. Pelvic tilts also are good to just do in everyday life, like when you lay down to go to bed or something, to make sure your pelvis is moving. So a pelvic tilt, if my pelvis is in neutral here, where it's directly underneath me in its nice normal position, a pelvic tilt is a posterior tilt, is tucking under. Since I'm a veterinarian too, a visual I like to use is if we had a tail, if I'm tucking my tail under, or if I'm raising my tail up. This is an anterior pelvic tilt. Neutral, posterior tilt, anterior tilt. So pelvic tilts are going to be the next thing that we do on the ball. As you guys can probably see, I can anteriorly tilt very well. My posterior is a little compromised. I still don't have perfect range of motion, especially with my posterior tilt, because my poor posture, my pelvis lived in that anterior position. That's where it was all the time. That's where my body thought was normal. So I'm still compromising going the posterior tilt range. So now we're going to do those tilts on the ball. So do those tilts for me about 10 times, or on the balls. If you don't have something, again, just come back to this part, because I swear this right here has helped my kicks so much. Like, if this has seriously been a game changer for my hips opening up when I'm delivering my kicks, especially with my body kicks and head kicks. My head kicks were pathetic for a long time. And I know when I'm shadowboxing them here, they still look what I would consider pathetic, especially when you guys look compared to Boz. But when I'm head kicking the person, most of the time they're better. They're still not perfect. The next thing that we're gonna do, stay on that tender spot. If it doesn't feel so bad, move the balls around and find another tender spot, and we're gonna lift and lower the leg. Make sure your head and neck are relaxed. Even if you're not all the way down on the ground, try to not tense up. So try to make sure they're somewhat relaxed. If you're up here, totally fine. This is where I was in the beginning, especially when we got to these last two things, which is the lift and lower, and then the very last one. Lift and lower 10 times. The very last one is sort of like a bicycle. You're bringing your knee towards your chest, kicking your foot out, and then coming around. Again, knee towards the chest, kicking the foot out, coming around. So it's a little bicycle type motion. This one, I was like the first, again, 3 and 4 times for sure, maybe 5th one. I was like, no, I'm out. Like, I tapped out. I was like, I can't even, it hurts so bad. And it wasn't as bad like if I used the two balls together, but that alpha ball guy, yeah, it was no joke. And let's do the other side. So you can also, if you have, I know these aren't as common, but lacrosse balls, their firmness is even better than tennis balls. Tennis balls are just a little more, I don't know, most people, a little more common around the house, I guess. So again, I'm gonna go through this side a little bit faster so we can keep moving on. It's the pelvis just forward and back, so just straight forward, straight back, 10 times. Pelvic tilts, posterior, anterior tilt, 10 times. Lift and lower the leg, 10 times. And then bicycle, knee to the chest, kick out, around 10 times. And just like with everything else, just notice if one side feels more tight than the other. But again, this was a huge game changer for kicks for me. Getting that gluteus medius, which is a much smaller muscle, but getting that sucker released because that muscle is doing a lot to bring those kicks around. So when it's just stuck and tight, that's when my knee would just cave in and my kicks would end up coming here, especially if I tried to get them higher, I would just be kicking here, which is not ideal. Granted, I'm not competing or anything, but still, it's not good technique, and I want to have good technique. So it drove me crazy for the longest time. Why are my head kicks so bad when I have what should be enough flexibility? But, like Boz says, when we're doing our stretches every day, here's the head kick. So I have the flexibility and I have balance. So it was like, why are they so bad? So I was really happy. I was really grateful when Cameron showed me that one. And then I bought the book, the woman that makes the yoga tune-up balls. I bought her book, and she has a whole book of how you can do releases all over your body with just a few different size balls. It's really cool. Half kneeling hip flexor stretch. Tight hip flexors are super common for most of us too. A lot of us are sitting all day long, before now and now. Before now, it was at work. Now, it's sitting at home watching Netflix, probably. Maybe. Or just sitting at home doing whatever. Or it could also be from a lot of activity. Runners have tight hip flexors too, so bikers. So I feel like the way I think about it is inactivity and a lot of activity makes tight hip flexors, and then maybe it's just life in general, right? So half kneeling hip flexor stretch, a way to add to this stretch is to raise the arm of the leg that you're down on the knee on. So we get that whole fascia line along the body stretching. Now what I want to do is while I'm here in this half kneeling hip flexor stretch, I'm going to turn to the side. I want to go through the 3 planes of motion. This was another one from my physical therapist that was prescribed to me that my body needed. So while I am in my half kneeling position, arm overhead, I'm going into the sagittal plane, which is forward and back, feeling that hip flexor just stretch a little bit more in this plane. And I'm also adding in, if you can, squeezing that same side glute. So what we're doing here is if I squeeze or contract the muscle that's opposite to the muscle that I'm trying to stretch, it actually makes a deeper stretch in that muscle. So I'm doing all of that at the same time. Squeezing or engaging this glute, arm overhead with my tall posture, going through the sagittal plane, just nice and gently, rocking forward and back. So this is the plane that most of us are the best at moving in, because that's how we walk, that's how most of life happens to us every day in the sagittal plane. Do maybe 10 forward and back there. The next plane of motion, now I'm going to face you guys again, is called the frontal plane. And this is our side to side, left to right motion. Same thing, squeeze that glute, arm overhead, and now I'm going to come to my right side and to my left side. So now I'm still stretching the hip flexor, but now I'm adding this frontal plane of motion. Side to side. I love the feel of the stretch down the back as well. So that's our frontal plane, still squeezing the glute. Sometimes you might let go of the glute. I do it too. And I'll be like, oh yeah, re-engage. So if you let go of it accidentally, just know that I do it too. And just re-engage it. And now we're coming to the transverse or rotational plane. Transverse plane is more technical, squeezing the glute. I move my arm to like goalpost arms, and now I'm just coming around, going as far as I can. We all know this plane of motion or we should, I hope, because fighting is so much rotation. So when you do things on your recovery that's mimicking what we're doing in fighting, but we're doing them in a gentle, controlled, and more recovery type fashion, it only makes everything better in fighting. Let's switch sides. I remember when Boz was talking about, I guess it was yesterday, right? The question about jumping rope, squeeze the glute, arm overhead, sagittal plane. And the question was, do you jump rope? And if so, whatever the question was. And he was like, it's good, but I never did it that much because he would rather practice fighting stuff. So he would rather practice more and get more time in under, what he did as a profession. So, obviously he's a professional fighter, but it's a similar thing. If you are practicing slower range, what you are wanting to do, if you're etc. Awesome, cool. So make your recovery and your stretching and your practice fall along those same lines, so that your body is like, oh yeah, this is what we do, and we can do it in a nice controlled fashion, which then is going to help you to do it more explosively too. Side, this frontal plane, bring the arm to goalpost arms, and this transverse plane. So these are our half kneeling hip flexor stretches. Keeping hip flexor stretch, super important. Another thing we can add to this, if you have the flexibility to do so, is you can grab the foot, that same side, to get a deeper quad stretch with either the same side hand or opposite hand. Woo, just lost my balance. So that's another way to just get the quad stretched a little bit more. Add that in there. Okay, another thing for tight hips. Tight hips was a common theme. A lot of us have tight hips, are just lying knee hugs, and these just feel good. So lying down, grab one knee, pull it in below the kneecap, just on the shin. Just pull it in gently. I'll do a little bit of bouncing here. You could also do static hold. You could also release and come back into it. There's so many different ways to do things. It's not like there's one way you have to do this and that's it. There's so many different ways, and you can make up stuff. What feels good to you and your body. Cool. If it works for you, it works. So there's so much information out there and so many ways to do things. Just know that there's not just one way to do things. Also, now bring it outside, sort of angling more towards the outside of your head or to outside of the shoulder. So now we're just angling it outside. This is also a great time when you're holding it statically to add in some ankle circles. I have a little bit limited range in my right ankle, and I have to release that joint using a strap. I try to do it daily, but you may feel differences in your ankles too. And that can translate to things, obviously such as fighting, but also if you do strength training, limited ankle mobility, you'll feel that in things like your squats and stuff. So that's another reason why I try to always release those ankles. Switch sides, gently pull it back. You'll feel low back stretch as well. You'll feel a little bit of hamstrings, and you'll feel glutes as well. But these are really good for tight hips also. You can do a little bit of bouncing. You can add in those ankle circles. And I would always recommend several ankle circles, one direction, and then switch directions. Definitely make sure you're switching up directions so you're not just doing things, to one way. We want the body to be as balanced as we can. Now change the angle where that knee is coming more towards the shoulder. And you can still throw in more ankle circles if you'd like. Each direction. Okay, those are good for tight hips. Another good thing to know. Actually, let me do this. Let me finish with the hip stuff first, and then I want to talk about activating to stretch. Frog stretch. I'm going to come sideways. Have your knees pretty wide, wider than shoulder width for sure. Try to keep your shins on the ground. Sometimes it takes me a little bit to get to where I can keep my shins on the ground because my inner thighs can be a little bit tight. Put your forearms on the ground and then just kind of drive your hips backwards. You should feel a nice stretch on the inside of your legs. So this is our frog stretch. I always have to breathe into this one because this one is tricky. This one and the next one, I can definitely feel my tightnesses. Stretching before and even after training is valid. Definitely before to warm up, as you see Bon and I stretch here. But after is really good too. Sometimes we forget, we're like, okay, I'm done, all right, cool, out, onto the next task. But if you can throw in a little bit after as well, that's even better because your muscles have just worked. So now you're kind of cooling them down too. Another way to go about it, if you have the capability, oh man, that one's tight for me, is sauna and using the heat to stretch. That's really cool. When our gym is open, we have a sauna here, and I'll try to throw in some stuff while I'm in the sauna. I don't have a ton of room, but it's nice to just, again, there's always something you can do somewhere. So using the combination of that heat to help stretching, so good. Quadruped to pigeon. Quadruped pose is where you're on all fours. Try to have your wrists beneath your shoulders and your knees beneath your hips. It's helpful that I have this to look at so I can see if I'm way out here. Not quite as ideal as if I'm right underneath. One quick one I'm going to throw in right here is cat and cow, because cat and cow is really good for your spine and keeping your spine nice and mobile. Again, when things are mobile, they're much less injury prone. That's huge. So cat, think of scaredy cat. You're rounding your back, raising it as high up to the ceiling as you can. Also, you could pull in that core at the same time. And then cow is where you have that dip in your back. This is cow, this is cat. I like to inhale here, exhale here. And let your neck move with you too. And I am changing foot position as I'm doing this as well. Not totally necessary, but it just feels good to me. So this position right here is called quadruped. This position where we have one leg at basically a 90 and the other straight back behind me is called pigeon. Come to the side. This is pigeon. You can see I'm a little tight here. This is pigeon. We can mix these two. We can come from a quadruped pose. We can come around to the side to pigeon. Also, while we're here in pigeon, I like to drive the torso into different directions. Oh, and feel that low back stretch too. So just drive around. If this angle doesn't feel good to you, start with the foot closer to you. You will have more flexibility with the foot closer to you. You could see when I bring my foot close to me, all of a sudden I can get a little bit straighter. So I have just as many tightnesses. If I live at a 45, that's a pretty good in between for me. When you're driving that torso, try to not round your back too much. Try to still be conscious of your posture. I joke with my clients when I'm strength training them. I'm like, okay, we want obviously good form for strength training. We want good posture. We want shoulders back. Shoulders and ears are not friends. Chest lifted. Blah, blah, blah. When we're fighting, I'm like, okay, all that goes out the window as far as the good posture. Now we want our fighting stance. You could come back to quadruped and then come back to the other side, pigeon. So, because as we know, our fighting stance is shoulders up, protecting the chin, because this is the knockout zone. We want to make ourselves a little bit smaller, so my chest is not open, my chest is here. So I'm like, okay, when we're fighting, this is the only time we're allowed to have this posture. Like, never in life do I want you walking around like that. And it's super cute. I have a friend of mine who's a client, and she's a Pilates instructor. She's an awesome Pilates instructor. And she so wants to maintain her good, her good Pilates posture is, it's so built into her, which is freaking awesome. But I'm all like, no, Jeanette, no. We have to have our fighting stance. And I'm like, bad posture. like anti-Pilates. But she's so cute because she's like fighting with her chin up in that perfect form. I'm like, no, chin down, protect your knockout zone. So it's really cute. But so going back to the stretch, the quadruped to pigeon is just kind of a fun way to put them together. You can of course do either on their own. This side is even tighter. Look at how far back my foot is. It does not want to be out here. Woo! Someone needs to be doing these stretches more, don't they? Shin box switches. So pigeon, more than quadruped. Really good for kicks too. Really good to open up those hips. Couple last things. We're running out of time. Time flies. These are called shin box switches. So both of my legs are just at like a 90 and a 90. And I'm doing the same thing, driving my torso, different angles, switching. Try to switch or get to the point where you can switch without the use of your hands on the ground, keeping that chest open and your back nice and long as you're driving to different angles here. Switch. Do these. I'll usually do like 5 rounds. So I'm getting 5 on each leg. If you need to start out using your hands to help you switch, totally fine. No judgment zone, except when it's about form. That was a funny story. Dwayne Woodward. I love it. He's an awesome guy. Okay, shin box switches. Last couple things I want to mention. Calves. We obviously spend a lot of time on the ball of one foot. Also, whenever you want to go into your southpaw stance, and it's funny, you'll feel like when you're supposed to be stance, when you switch stances, you'll be like, oh, my calf, like it's so tired. So stretching your calves, you can use a wall to stretch calves. That's pretty easy. We all have that accessible. Put your foot up on the wall and just feel that calf stretch. You can lightly press into the wall, both sides. You can also use a block or just something that, you can use a curb. Something like that. Usually I kind of want a little something to hold on to, but you can try to stretch both calves at the same time. When you're here, try to see if somebody can help you check your posture, because I don't want to be here. I also don't want to be here. I want to have good posture while I'm stretching these calves, so I'm keeping my body in its nice natural alignment. Another one is you can take your tennis ball. This is really good for the calf muscle because we want to stretch it, but also if there are some tightnesses in that fascia, then stretching may not quite get all of that. So use this ball. If you have a block and you can elevate your calf with the ball on that block, even better. Ideally, we want the foot totally relaxed when we're trying to get into this calf muscle. If you don't have a block, then just use the ground. Just try to make sure you're not tensing the foot, flexing it or extending it and creating any tension there. And those ankle circles would be the last thing I would say. You can do at least 40 ankle circles a day. Was another thing I was prescribed by fitting a pain management guy. Just lying down, support the back of your leg so that your leg can be relaxed. Ankle circles one direction, the other, both sides. And I think I'm going to go with that. That'll be my last thing. I will read all the comments. If you guys have any feedback, questions, concerns, I'll look through those comments later. Thank you so much. I hope this was helpful. I hope you guys have a nice recovery day. Please use this whole day as recovery. You might want to do something today, but I promise you, you'll get better rewards. If, again, when you want to get gains in something, those days of rest are huge for recovery. That, when you're sleeping, when you're recovering, that is when your body changes. And when we're doing all these hard workouts, we need that recovery. So if you have a nice walk out in nature, have a great Sunday, and we will see you guys here tomorrow at 10 a.m. with BasRutten. Oh, there he is!
There he is to save the day. She came to save the day today. Thank you very much, Dana.
Welcome.
Freaking awesome. And you guys, Monday we start, tomorrow, we're going to start again at 10 a.m. and we're going to go hard again right away. We're going to start with boxing, Thai boxing, and the mixed martial arts round, like we did the last workout was Friday, I believe. Mm-hmm. So, and people were already saying, oh, this is the warm-up, because they thought it went a little fast. But everybody's going to do it, and slowly but surely, in 3 weeks, let's hope that everybody can plow through that workout with no problem whatsoever. And if you keep doing these ones on Sunday, you recoup again. And please listen to this lady. She knows what she's talking about. So you need to recoup today so you get more powerful tomorrow.
Yes.
All right.
All right. Thank you, guys.
We'll see you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Pacific. Godspeed. And party on. That's what we're doing.